Hey everybody, I'm James, and today we're looking at a Democratic presidential candidate who got a lot of attention on YouTube following his performance in the debates. Former Alaska Senator Mike Gravel served in the Senate from 1969 until 1981. He joins me now.
Okay.
Senator Mike Gravel, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here, Jim. It's a new experience for me.
in my dorm room once again, and this is the second time I've had a candidate in my dorm room. The first was Ron Paul, and now we have a former senator from Alaska here. So I'm very pleased to get you on as well.
Thank you very much.
You are here. People tell me that you're here to make some kind of announcement, some kind of policy announcement about foreign policy. Is that correct?
Well, it's about foreign policy. It's how to get out of Iraq. And I'm having a press conference on Monday where I'll be releasing the text of a bill, a piece of legislation that makes it a felony if we don't get out in 60 days. And it makes it a felony for the President, Vice President, and the Secretary of Defense, and under the use of funds, the Secretary of the Treasury. This legislation, and somebody would say, well, why this legislation when they can't get other legislation through? Well, the other legislation is somewhat timid. You have to have something clearly that the American people can understand, and that is stay in or get out. It's costing us American lives and Iraqi lives right today. So why should the Congress be so timid? Most people don't realize that because of the imperial presidency, the ability of the Congress to assert its power has been very limited. In point of fact, the Congress is more powerful than the President. It has historically failed to exercise that power. The last group that exercised it was under Lyndon Johnson when he was the majority leader, and Sam Rayburn when he was in the House. So now what we have to do is put forth a piece of legislation that clearly states get in or get out, stay in or get out. And then what the leadership has to do is introduce it in both chambers. What you do in the first chamber is turn around and have a vote immediately, as soon as possible, and you've got the Democratic votes to pass it. Now
in the House.
In the House. Now it goes to the Senate. Well, obviously, some Republicans are going to filibuster this. Republicans and let's say the senator from Connecticut, Lieberman, they'll filibuster it. Let them filibuster it. And then what the leader should do is have a cloture vote on, as soon as it's apparent they're filibustering, have a cloture vote on noon on that day, and they won't get cloture, but then they have it noon the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and they cut out and do it 7 days a week. There's no weekends off, and there's no vacation time off. The Congress...
So basically wearing them down is essentially what you're...
Which is what a filibuster does. Mm-hmm. And this is something I have a lot of experience in. So now they will wear them down. They'll die in a vine because survival is at stake, and I got to tell you, politicians will react to survival.
Do you think the American people might be concerned that this is taking up every single waking hour of Senate business? Would they maybe want other issues?
That's not so. That's not so, because it's only going to take a half hour every day. That's not taking up.
Well, I think when most people think of a filibuster, they think of Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
It's a different tactic. You're invoking cloture, and so as soon as you have the vote to invoke cloture, then you can take it down and do other business in the Senate. In fact, they'll be able to do more business because they'll be there 7 days a week and not take any vacations. Okay. So they'll be able to do a lot of business. Now, here's what happens after that. They send it to the president. Obviously, he'll veto it. He said he's going to let him veto it. Get it done. Get it back to the House and the Senate. And so now what you do is the same tactic. On every noon in the House and in the Senate, the Speaker brings it up for an override veto. To override the veto, a vote to override the veto. Same thing in the Senate, a vote to override the veto. And they do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, until they wear down the opposition and the people that want to stay in the war. Now, this is where, you see, by this tactic, we permit and give the people time to weigh in and begin to put the pressure on their representatives, their senators, to say, what are you people doing? This is costing human lives, and we want the war to end. But by having a vote and then they go on to other business, what happens is the people don't have enough time to weigh in. But now if you do it day after day after day, the media will jump on this like a bunch of maggots. and they'll dramatize it.
I'll try not to take that too personally, although I don't really consider myself a member of
You're not part of the mainline media, so it's not personal at all.
Okay.
But they'll jump on it because it dramatizes, and now it permits. See, what I'm trying to do is to create a constitutional confrontation between the Congress, which is more powerful than
Right.
the president, and then have it adjudicated by the American people. But it takes time to let the people weigh in, and that's why you just keep up these override votes day after day after day
Okay.
at exactly the same time. And the votes will only take a half hour, and then you can go on to other business. Then the next day at noon, another vote. And you'll watch these people just wither on the vine, because what's at stake here is the survival, the political survival of these people who are for the war. And they, I promise you, will weaken. This is a scenario to have us committed to get out of Iraq by Labor Day, and we'll have everybody home by Christmas.
Now, you say you actually have some experience with this tactic. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well,
have you seen this work before?
Well, with respect to the override, no, it's never been done. But the rules are there; they can do it. And a little bit of imagination, a little bit of leadership does that. And so you just vote over and over again. The leader sets the calendar of votes, and so whether it's the leader in the Senate or the Speaker in the House, they set the calendar. So you have a vote every single day.
Okay.
And it's only that way can they now involve the American people. Of course, if we had the national initiative, which is what I'm really pushing as my primary motivation, and that is for the people to make laws, if the people were able to make laws with the national initiative today, they would get us out of Iraq last fall.